So for me, what's really important is, and useful, is in this example, there is what they call the SMART goals, S-M-A-R-T, which are really useful. These are questions you can ask yourself if you feel that your goal or your boundary is appropriate or inappropriate. So the S there, if you see at the bottom of that page there, it says the S is to be specific, which we've discussed. Really describing your boundary clearly. You know, you need to be clear on what do you mean by tidy. So if you want to get your 3-year-old to vacuum, what does that mean? Does that mean that everything's clean? Does it mean they just run over it a few times? Do they have to do it twice? Do they have to do it crisscross? What does that mean? Otherwise, they're not going to be clear either. Measurable. So if you cannot measure, then how are you going to know it's enough? And this is, I think, is really difficult, because if you think of it, a boundary is a fixed point, right? A boundary of a property is this point is on this side and that point is on that side. There's a line, right? So at some point you have to know if you have reached the boundary or reaching it, or if you've stepped over it. So you need to know that, because your child might turn to you and say, Mom, or teacher might say, Teacher, is our room now clean after our art time? You need to know how you're going to measure that. And you can't just say, well, I'm going to thumbsuck it. There's some criteria that you've got, and that's what you're measuring. You need to be able to articulate those, because then they know if they have achieved that or not. Otherwise, it's going to be very wishy-washy for them. Attainable. So is this boundary attainable? No, it's actually, can it be achieved? Realistic. Is what you're asking or needing realistic? So that partly comes in. Like, you need to ask yourself, is asking my child to clean my whole house, you know, and my child's only 4, is that really realistic? Yes, they might actually be capable to some degree or not. Or you might say, listen, this is actually too far-fetched, so there's no point fighting for this boundary to be in place. And timeline, essential. Over what time period will they put this in place? So Gavin sharing at that moment of, you know, where you're frustrated, is you have an expectation that they will have learnt this or adhere to this boundary from the get-go, right from start to finish. For some people, it's really useful to realize, okay, so I'm wanting to put this boundary in place. I'm aware, like Renee had shared earlier around my muesli tin, is that it might take me a while for it to become part of my natural routine. So then there's a sense of, okay, so we're going to learn this boundary over the next 1 week or 2 weeks. Right? That's a time frame that I've got to grapple with this, support to be given to me so that I have a real awareness about it. So again, think about the time frame or that timeline that you have in the expectation and the support that you can give for those boundaries to be adhered to. Okay. Any other questions about detail?